Thanks, Rolika. I'm very good afternoon to all of you. I would like to thank AIOS and Dr. Honawar for giving me this opportunity to speak about surgical management of glaucoma today. Well, there are different techniques for surgeries, and there are different indications related to that. And the choice largely depends on multiple factors. Well, that range from amount of target IOP that you've chosen for an individual, what is the kind of surgery patient has undergone, what is the degree of a field loss, what is the risk profile of the patient, and most importantly, what is the preference and experience of a surgeon who is going to take care of the case. Not to forget that we have to keep in mind patient's opinion and expectation about the surgery, and also how often patient would be able to come for follow up. So in general, the principles are that the decision of surgery should be based on evidence-based practice, and there are multiple factors that to be kept in mind. Surgery should be considered when medical therapy and laser fail. However, it should not be kept as a last resort. Angle closure glaucoma should be dealt with PI first, and primary congenital glaucoma or pediatric glaucoma, we need to understand surgery is the main goal, and goniotomy or angle surgeries in with or without combination with filtration surgery is what is to be done based on the condition. Secondary glaucomas have to be treated along with the treatment of the primary cause, and the choice of surgery may be different than the primary glaucoma. So basically, when the optic nerve function is failing or we are not able to achieve sufficient IOP reduction, whether it is related to the efficacy of the drugs or compliance or side effects or affordability of the drugs, and we are seeing progression of visual field, is when the surgery is indicated. So just to give you a short algorithm, like if you have an uncontrolled intraocular pressure with maximum tolerated visual therapy, you have multiple options like TRAB, like express shunt, or non-penetrating glaucoma surgeries. I'll explain in detail further. Once, if that set of surgeries are failing or there are poor chances of success, then we looked at then we look at shunts, particularly when there's also scarred conjunctiva. And if we have a poor visual prognosis or low possibility of surgery, then we go towards the cyclodestructive surgeries. The newer surgeries or mix fall somewhere here between the medical therapy and the trabeculectomy, because the pressure control we achieve there is not very low. Now, let me explain you a little bit about the trabeculectomy basic technique, this being the most common surgery. Now, doing a conjunctival incision here, this can be limbal based or fornix based. This is a limbal based incision where you can separate the conjunctiva and tenons and reach the episcleral tissue, cauterize, and then make a partial thickness scleral flap. Now, I prefer a triangular flap. It can be rectangular as well. What you need to understand is this is a partial thickness flap, so you need to be careful of maintaining a plane once you have achieved that. You can use a 15 number blade or you can use a crescent for making that. Once you reach the clear cornea, you should mark the posterior trabecular meshwork and then enter and excise that. Now, trabecular meshwork block excision can be done using Kelly's sponge, like how it is being done here after entering through the marks that you made, or even with the Vanna scissor by holding the flap so that you excise. And then after that, a peripheral iridectomy is done. You have to make sure that the full thickness iridectomy is there before you actually close the scleral flap with tenonylon suture. Now, whether a single suture or 3 sutures, it depends on how much filtration do you want in a given patient. Always bury the knots after closing the scleral flap. And the conjunctival flap can be closed with atovicryl. In this particular situation, it is being closed with a continuous purse string suture because it's a limbal based flap, so that you only have a couple of sutures towards the edges. If you have to do a combined surgery, that means if you have to combine cataract with glaucoma, when do we do that? When we are anyway planning a glaucoma surgery and there is a visually significant cataract, or if the patient has advanced glaucoma and is on multiple medications and you're planning a cataract surgery. So based on the desired IOP control, the severity of glaucoma, and anticipated benefit after cataract extraction is when you decide about the combined surgery. Things that you need to keep in mind is whether a one-site surgery or two-site surgery, whether a limbal incision or fornix-based incision does not affect the outcome much. So it depends on your preference. Mitomycin C should be used in most of the cases when you're doing a combined surgery unless contraindicated. So just a little algorithm: when you have glaucoma with cataract, if the IOP is high, and your disc and field is normal, you should do only cataract surgery. If the IOP is high and there is moderate glaucoma or early to moderate glaucoma, you should do combined surgery if there is poor compliance or the tolerance to medication is not good. If there is advanced damage, whether your IOP is controlled with medication or the IOP is high, you should preferably go for a combined surgery. And if you have early changes on disc and fields and the pressures are controlled, there is no doubt to do only cataract surgery. So now, how do you combine cataract with the trabeculectomy? When you're doing a phaco, it's simple to use a side pot to make a CCC and then start your conjunctival incision. Now, this is a fornix-based incision that you're seeing. And after that, you make a partial thickness scleral flap, as we saw in the previous video also. Once you reach the clear cornea, the same process of marking of posterior trabecular meshwork, and then you enter with a keratome. So the same incision you can use to perform your phaco emulsification, and then put the intraocular lens in the bag, and then excise the trabecular meshwork block using any of the instruments that you feel comfortable with, like Kelly's punch or Dvanas, and do a good peripheral iridectomy before you close the scleral flap with tenno nylon suture. The conjunctival flap closure here is being done with interrupted sutures. Important thing here is to anchor these two edges with the episcleral tissue near the limbus so that your flap does not retract back. And the rest you can close with the interrupted sutures. If you have to combine a small incision cataract surgery with trap, there is no need to have a separate triangular incision. You can just use your SICS incision and make it little anterior, 1 or 1.5 millimeter anterior to what you usually make. And then do this trabecular meshwork block excision and PI after you put the lens in the bag. So at the same flap near the block excision, you can use a suture to close. So this is the area that would work as a bleb, and the conjunctival closure is the same way as you had seen in the previous video. Now, when do you use releasable suture? When you want to avoid hypotony in the initial phase but need a relatively lower target pressure, when MMC is contraindicated and you anticipate hypotony, or when you need to adjust the intraocular pressure post-operatively. Whether you use 1, 2, or 3 depends on how is the amount of adjustment that you require. However, these are not preferable in children or patients who cannot cooperate on the slit lamp post-operatively. Now, how do you put a releasable suture? After you put a fixed apical suture, you can take a bite through the partial thickness cornea on the side so that you can leave the loose end of the suture there and take your side suture like how you would take and tie it with 4 throws with the loop that is between the corneal incision and your entry at the scleral flap. So once you've taken 1 throw, then you can cut the suture and the closure is the same way. Now, when you have to remove this suture in the OPD, sorry, I must go further. Yeah, so when you have to remove this suture in the OPD, what you need to do is you have to lift the suture out of that partial thickness corneal tunnel that you had created for the suture so that it is available to you. Now, this patient, I wanted to cut the suture and not release the suture. So you can just hold this suture and use a needle to cut the edge near the limbus. So the rest of the cut edge is retracted under the conjunctiva. So there is no more exposed suture there. And in a situation where you want to release the suture, again, take it out through the corneal tunnel and pull the suture down as the patient is looking down. And you can gently take it out. So what you need to remember here is when you release a suture, always check for a leak. So do a Siedel's test after you release a suture so that there is no leak there. In case you find a small leak, you can always use a contact lens for a few days. Mitomycin C is very commonly used in different dosages like 0.2 to 0.4 and the timings based on how much is the hypotony or the pressure control that you would want, and on a large area so that it is not giving you a localized bleb. According to the Moorfield Safer Surgery System, there is also a collagen implant that many people use to improve the quality of bleb, so you don't get a very thin bleb after mitomycin C. 5-FU is a relatively milder antifibrotic that is used post-operatively. So this is given as just an injection in the under slit lamp only post-operatively near the bleb. If you see congestion or fibrosis around the bleb, So 3 to 7 injections at weekly intervals are what can be used to reduce the fibrosis in the blood area to improve the filtration. Well, let us now see what are the indications for glaucoma drainage devices. Basically, when trabeculectomy is unlikely to be successful, that is when we use glaucoma drainage devices, or in certain situations where there is neovascular glaucoma, uveitic glaucoma, or there is a lot of scarring, where we use the shunts. So now the limiting factor here is also the scar formation around the plate. So if there is scarring near the limbus, that is okay. But if there is scarring in the fornices, even the glaucoma drainage device can become difficult. And the larger surface area of the plate are associated with lower IOP. To take you through the video of a valvular drainage device or the AMF valve, you have to do a large conjunctival pocket. This is being done in the supratemporal area. So these are the two relaxing incisions because you need a large pocket. And this is the priming of the valve. It is important to prime a valve before you put it so that it works after you insert it. Otherwise, if the air is there or the valve is not functioning well, you would not realize, and the surgery will fail. Then you need to anchor the plate around 8 to 10 millimeter from the limbus. This is being done with the Prolene suture with 2 eyelets. Once you've tied the suture, make sure that you bury the knot inside those grooves so that it does not erode the conjunctiva. The tube can be cut 2 to 3 millimeter inside the limbus and is inserted in such a way that it does not touch the cornea or the iris. And the path is started from around 2 millimeter or 1.5 millimeter beyond the limbus. Now, this part of the tube is also fixated to the sclera so that it does not move. And this is covered with either a scleral patch graft or a cornea or a pericardium, whatever you like, and it can be closed with the glue or sutures. And over that, the conjunctival sutures are used to close the flap, that is by vicryl sutures or absorbable sutures. Now, there are certain differences between a valvular and a non-valvular implant. So just to tell you what are the differences, the conjunctival flap that you make for a non-valvular implant is larger, and the plate is fixated under the muscle. So you need to isolate the muscle, like in this, we are doing in between the inferior and the lateral rectus. And important thing is that you need to ligate the tube so that to avoid hypotony, and make the fenestrations with the needle proximal to the ligature so as to allow some filtration till the time ligature is opened up. There is also something known as express shunt, which has become very popular. However, due to cost issues, it is not as popular as trabeculectomy. And the surgical procedure is very simple, as good as the trap. The only thing that you need to do different here is that after making the conjunctival flap and the partial thickness scleral flap, you need not excise the posterior trabecular meshwork. Now, this is a patient who has had a failed trap already. This is the scarred area that you can see. So the dissection is little difficult, but here you can manage with a small area also. So once you've created a flap, you only need to identify scleral spur and insert a needle where you're going to put the express shunt. So this is what the needle is being inserted and the express shunt being inserted there. So once you relieve the stylus, this is where the shunt goes. So it is as simple as that. And then you should close how you would close for any trap procedure. So advantage there is that you don't have to enter the anterior chamber much. Then there are some non-penetrating glaucoma surgeries. However, again, they have not become very popular because the success rates have not been as good as trap or express. And over a period of time, they tend to fail. However, just to give an idea to you of how the surgical procedure is, here you make a large rectangular flap, which is partial thickness. And this is not the half thickness, this is 1/3 of the thickness. So once you've created that, you create another flap, which is triangular under this. That is again 1/3 of the thickness. So once you make this flap has to be excised. And idea is to reach to the Schlemm's canal So you identify the Schlemm's canal, and the roof of the Schlemm's canal is actually excised. So this is a fine dissection that is taking care of removing only the roof of the Schlemm's canal, and this is putting a spacer so that the aqueous ooze keeps continuing up to the subconjunctival space. The flap is closed as in any other surgery that we have been seeing. So another segment is minimally invasive glaucoma surgeries. How these have been very popular recently because they can be done through a clear corneal approach, and the safety profile is very high. However, they have modest efficacy. I'm not going to talk about MIGS today because this is beyond the scope of this talk. So last but not the least is the cyclodestructive procedure. When nothing works or the visual prognosis is very poor, in those situations, we resort to cyclodestructive surgeries like this. It's a diode laser being done or transscleral photocoagulation. However, we need to keep in mind the complications like hyphema, CME, vision loss, and even phthisis in some situations. So that has to be kept in mind. So to end, the points to remember are that you need to understand the interaction between disease, treatment, and quality of life, and which is unique to each individual. So accordingly, you have to plan the surgery. Always measure the risk-benefit ratio when you're advising any invasive procedure to a patient. And remember, trabeculectomy is still the most popular glaucoma surgery. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sushma. I think you're really covered in that little time. You've really covered everything. You haven't left anything, just one or two points. Very rightly, Sushma said that please be careful. Angle closure has 3 times more blindness than OAG. So maybe you can plan your surgeries earlier than you would in open angle glaucoma. If you are a postgraduate and you've just passed out, don't be scared to refer the patient, because if a surgery is needed, it is needed. And as a current level, would you, Sushma, prefer to do a Phoenix flap or a limbal-based flap?
Most of the situation I use a Phoenix-based flap, but in children I still prefer a limbal-based flap so that they don't rub.
You all showed were limbal-based, so I was wondering if you.
Only traps when I do, I still use in many patients, younger patients especially, so that I don't get those problems with rubbing and all.
Okay, and the corneal traction suture, obviously, right?
With all